Right. Thank you, everybody, for joining us for another WKS podcast. This time I'm with Rose and Jade of a band called Fallen Stars. How are you doing, guys?
I'm loving
I'm
it,
doing
loving it.
well.
Brilliant.
Doing well, thanks.
Fantastic. So you're based in Vancouver in Canada. Um,
Yes,
Fantastic. So Rose, do you want to sort of start to tell us a little bit about sort of how you got into music in the first place?
absolutely. My dad is a drummer. That was probably my first introduction to music. He plays anything with a beat. So from a very, very young age, I grew up playing little bits on the congos and bongos and the drum kit, which wasn't exactly what I fell in love with. What I really wanted to do was perform on stage and not be trapped behind a drum kit. And that's where I took the leap into doing vocals. And I started writing songs probably as young as 6 or 7 years old was my first one.
Right. Right. Superb. What about yourself, Jade?
I've grown up playing piano my entire life, and I was a complete show off from the first minute I did my first concert. I remember my mom saying uh, how she remembers all the little girls growing up and playing their little songs, and then I would come up and I would just hit the keys a lot harder. Um, and it was kind of a precedent because that's kind of how I've lived my entire life. Just I don't I find I thrive on stage. I need that that attention from
Mm.
people, and I just really enjoy putting my music out in the world.
Brilliant. Brilliant. We'll just say, Rose, that there's a slight sort of echo on your sound in the background. Not that
All
it's
right.
affecting. It's not affecting too much, I don't think. Um,
Okay.
Rose, do you want to explain a bit about sort of how you got together with Fallen Stars then, and what sort of music you play?
Certainly. Fallen Stars actually started as Jade's solo project. Many years ago, we were living together in a trailer on Vancouver Island, and Jade really wanted to put out an album and didn't have anybody to sing on the project. So I encouraged her to actually put vocals on it herself. And she did. She released it. It went over really well as a solo project. However, she wanted to bring the full band sound to it. So we moved back to Vancouver on the mainland, and she just started reaching out to different people. She asked myself to step on as lead vocalist, and then we reached out to other contacts that we've known in the music scene over various years and asked if they wanted to join us. Luckily, they said yes. We've been together for probably about 3 years, maybe 4 years now. And I definitely I say our sound is hard rock pop metal.
Okay, superb, superb. Jade, who's the main sort of lyricist then in the band?
Oh man, that is 100% Rose. I can rhyme the end of phrases, and that's about it. I always and when it started, I had written some lyrics for some of them, and Rose was mostly just putting her vocals and her spin and her melodies on it. But literally, as the next batch of songs came, I just left all the responsibilities to Rose, and the stories actually became important and became a theme. And then the nice thing is that I can pitch Rose an idea, whether through a song title, if I'm making an instrumental or something, and I'm like, hey Rose, I really want to write about this tragedy that happened in the States, or an idea or a topic, or I'm like, I really want to talk about grief and self-depression, and Rose will take that on and deliver something that's very unique but catchy, memorable, and something that is well worded. So I
Mm,
really appreciate that.
mm, brilliant. Have you, Rose, writing wise, have you found the lockdowns to be productive for you, or just the opposite?
It's been a bit of both, honestly. The first half of the lockdowns was honestly a bit shocking, and I definitely took a bit of time. Things were chaotic over where I was living at the time, so we ended up moving probably 2 or 3 times, and then when we settled down, I was able to start writing some more music, which I found really productive. And I have gotten the chance to not only write music for Fallen Stars, but also a little solo project that I've been working on more in the pop rap genres.
Right. Okay. Jade, what sort of music is out there now for people if they want to get hold of you, to listen to?
So currently, right now on Spotify, we have our uh, first single, which did really well, and then we have our EP called a 3-song EP, and then following that, we have Live Off the Floor album, and then following that, we have a 4-song EP. I believe, was it 4 or 3-song with Judgment Rose? I believe it was 4.
Three?
4,
Could have been.
3. Adelaide,
It's been so long.
Adelaide, Iron Caves, War Crimes,
And then let's see.
and then let's see. Yep, 4. So it's a nice having multiple recording engineers in the band allow us to put out music at a faster rate than a lot of bands that have to go into the studio and work with someone else. We can kind of work with ourselves and sit there and edit the mix for hours on end, and then kind of put things out. So
Okay.
it's a lot of fun.
How many members are in the band then, Jade?
We got Rose on lead vocals. We have Dave on guitar. We have Edison on guitar. We have Danny on drums, and myself on the 4-string monstrosity.
Wow. Okay. Superb. Superb. So coming out of lockdown then, Rose, what are the plans?
Well, we've got our album coming out on June 18th, which is super exciting. It's kind of tying into a lot of the lockdowns here starting to lift. It's all kind of playing it by ear at the moment here in BC. We're still in a state of lockdown at the moment where there's no restaurants or bars or anything open, no public events, no gathering anybody more than 10 people. So coming out of that, we're looking forward to actually playing shows.
Right.
And like in front of a live audience again. And I know Jade has been working hard with her company that she started, Support the Scene, in not only booking us shows for when lockdowns come out, lift, but also creating festivals for artists to perform at as well.
Wow. Brilliant. Brilliant. So, I mean, over here at the moment, we're now in sort of like the almost the final stages of a lockdown. We can actually now eat indoors and go to bars and stuff like that. And live music outdoors over this last month has started to pick up nicely. So what's the sort of Jade in Vancouver? What's the music scene like for metal bands or music like yourself?
Well, the one, having been in the Vancouver music scene with different genres for a number of years, the one thing I can say is that the metal scene gets almost no venues to play at, but it's easily the most thriving scene in Vancouver, considering you can go to a show and you'll see the same 30 to 40 people out at every show. So you quickly gain a lot of friends, and so beginning bands can come and they can join a bill, and if they're any good, a lot of people will automatically make friends, and they'll kind of just be accepted into the group kind of thing. It's a very I love the scene here in just a way of everyone knows everyone and everyone has everyone's back. So you know, when people release an album, all the other bands are sharing it and talking about it. When everyone is doing a show, everyone's like, hey, you know, if you're not doing anything this day, let's come on over, and then everyone will just kind of pop on over. It's a shame that we have no umbrella corporation. So when the government is trying to fund different music projects, there's no way of directly funding the local music scene other than giving it to maybe some venues, but even then the government doesn't like doing that.
Yeah.
So it's hard for us to survive in the the economy that became from the pandemic. But I'm excited to that people now are dying to see live shows again. So I'm hoping that we'll have a little bit of a resurgence and play some good shows. And I
Yeah.
really want to tell it to the bands to, when we do come back, to not just go and play your same tunes, to make it a show, to make it an experience, so that when you have all these new fans that come see you, you can make a lasting memory that makes them want to keep coming back for live music.
Brilliant. Absolutely brilliant. So okay, so Rose, which musicians, and bands and artists do you admire then?
Oh my goodness, there's so many across a large amount of genres. But off the top of my head, some of my favorite artists are, or vocalists even, is David Draymond from the band Disturbed, one of my absolute favorite vocalists of all times and favorite bands. But I'm also really influenced by a lot of rock music like Aerosmith and Kiss, Bonnie Tyler and Pat Benatar, and then a little bit more current in the rap side of things. I'm really influenced by like Eminem, Macklemore, Juice WRLD, and some more current day artists.
Wow, brilliant.
Very
What about
eclectic.
What about yourself, Jade?
I listen to a lot of Spotify random, like I'll just hit a playlist of a genre and just let it play. A lot of times I don't look at the artist name because I'm just walking or doing my thing, but I find so many cool artists and things like that that I'll try, and I try and find as many local people as I can. I mean, I love listening to radio, listening to the hits and things like that. But Muse to me is one of the my favorite all time bands. If you're talking big bands, the way they perform on stage, the way they are as a band, is to me just a pinnacle of professionalism and rock and roll at the same time. So they're my jam.
Fantastic. So fantastic that is. So what's Rose, what's the best bit of advice musically you've ever been given?
Oh, that's a good question. I guess something both my mom and dad have always said to me is, when you're performing, don't make it perfect. It's a live show isn't about hearing an album version of a song pitch perfect and everything. So just give your heart into it, put your all in it, and perform to the best of your ability. And don't care what you sound like. Like,
Lovely.
obviously, take it seriously and do your best, but just throw out other people's opinions and do what you love.
Brilliant. What about yourself, Jade? Best bit of advice?
I think it was Rose's dad who told me this advice. And after one of our shows, he comes up and he's like, "Ugh, you're a bassist. You should never get in front of the lead vocalist. You should never take away from her spotlight." And like, I was like, and then it was like one of those things where like I constantly do that now just because of that piece of advice. Because it's all about the interaction and the chemistry that bands have on stage. And if I'm trying to sneak in front of Rose and point my bass at the crowd, it just makes Rose lean over top of me and sing even harder. And I'd much rather that than for me to be off on the side in the back just playing my lines.
Brilliant. Brilliant. Right, final question, and I ask every band this question. Rose, to start with, bit fair advantage for you really, because well, it's unfair because Jade gets time to think about this. But anyway, Rose,
Yeah.
is there anybody you'd like to thank for you being here musically now?
Honestly, I've said it lots in this video already, but my mom and dad, they were the first people to introduce me into music, and I don't think they get enough credit.
Brilliant. Jade.
I have to say, the kid in my high school in grade 8 that we're sitting on a bus and he's like, listen to this. And he passes me the headphones and it's Children Bodom. At the time, I was only listening to like Lord of the Rings soundtrack music. Maybe the heaviest thing was maybe the Eagles. And then he comes in and he shows me this thing that still to my life changed the way I listen to music. And then he later that year bought me concert tickets to go see Alexis on Fire, which is another heavy act that blew my mind once again. So that kid has influenced my music and my life in more ways than he will ever know. And he'll never know about it because we never chat. I mean, I haven't seen him in years. But it's one of those things where like people will introduce you to different things, and those are what you really remember. And I will always thank him for showing me something that just I was like, this is really cool, and then I showed it to other people and they hated it. They were like, why is this person screaming at me? And I'm like, it's awesome. And yeah, that was that.
Fantastic. Guys, look, thank you so much for the time and the interview. Brilliant, absolutely brilliant. And good luck when we come out of the lockdown and, you know, with gigs and albums and what have you. All right.
Thank you. Thank
No
you so much
worries.
for having us on.
That's okay. You take care, guys.
Have a good one.
Take care.
Cheers.